Hey there, honey. I know I've been radio silent for a while, and I apologize for that. You can probably tell from my voice as to why I've been quiet. Not that you wouldn't already know. I've given some indication over the last couple of videos that I've uploaded that I haven't been feeling terribly well. And between that and the fact that the last 3 or 4 days have been sea days, there obviously hasn't been much ability to report anything. But we are slowly sailing in to the harbor at Mataram, Lombok, Indonesia, and it is kind of weird to be doing this in the middle of the day. It is a little after 1 in the afternoon. It's the time of day where it was like anybody who'd be itching to get off the boat is like a kid in the back seat going, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" And if you look down, you'd almost think we've stopped, but the horizon behind us is moving. We are not quite there yet. And even once that does happen, we still have to be cleared by Indonesian customs and other authorities. And yeah, that does mean providing them with the paperwork that we have and so forth. It's not going to be an immediate thing before we can get off and make our way about. But we're just about there after all this time. And as it so happens, so am I. I may be in less than the pink of health, but I'm as good as I'm going to be. And the nice thing about the 2 shore excursions that I've signed up for here in Indonesia is that they're both very mild. I'll be at a mall today, at the beach tomorrow. Can't be all that bad. I'm not going to be running myself through the ringer because I don't think I could take it just yet. And that was not designed that way, but it worked out that way. The Lord has a sense of humor, I guess, about these sorts of things. So here I am. Hopefully things will go smoothly, but we have yet to see. And this is just the introduction to Lombok and to Indonesia. So you can come along with and see it with me. Until my next cut, you take care. I'm going to be waiting in the theater in about an hour. So long. Well, it sounds like we're here. Whether we're docked or not remains to be seen, but they've got a welcoming party out for us. I'm guessing this is our first time docking at this, which is wild if you think about it. The Serenade of the Seas is 20 years old, and it's probably never been to Lombok before. I've had it confirmed. This is the first stop that the Serenade of the Seas has made to Lombok, Indonesia, and that explains why we're getting this kind of reception. Really, it shouldn't come as any surprise. There were a lot of these for the first leg of the journey. I'm surprised that this is the first time that I've come across one on my leg of the journey. I'm sure it's mostly because I have Java and Jakarta in mind when I think of Indonesia. But I think of the area as being insanely crowded, and that so far hasn't proven to be the case. Lombok is fairly empty with large stretches of rice paddies and open fields, and even now that we're in Ampenan, you can see how much behind me is just an empty square. Nothing is going on. However, I have been informed by our guide that this is the middle of Ramadan, so it may be that this is part of the whole fasting process. It's one of those cultural things that I don't know enough about to comment. It shouldn't come as any surprise, but unlike Mataram, which is a little further inland, Ampenan, the old town, is right on the coast. It is a harbor town, which, again, Stands to reason the Dutch were seafaring merchants. They set this place up, and they would do so right where the ships came in. As you can see, it's quite beautiful, but you'll also notice that it's not terribly built up either. Once again, I find myself glad that I'm in a tour group because I honestly don't know where I am and where I'm going. But I am following people, and I have people following me, and so I feel reasonably safe. But I have to admit, there's a lot about this that just doesn't feel... well, safe isn't the right word for it. The area does feel a little bit downtrodden, to put it mildly. And yet, folks are happy, and what few of them I do see, actually. And yet, it's a very different feel from the Anglosphere we've left behind in the likes of Australia and New Zealand. This is a different world, or at least a different part of it. And it's starting to feel like it. There is the beauty of the black sand beach, but there is also the ugliness of what the surf brings in and basically stays here. It gives the place a less than appealing flair to it, unfortunately. This claims to be a surf point, but between the garbage and the fires and stuff like that, I'm not sure it would terribly appeal to me, even if I was a surfer, to be quite honest. It hurts me to say so, because there's certain parts about it that still have a certain rustic charm to it. All right, we're working our way back, I think. And now it's an occasional smell of sewage just hit me, and it is reminding me that, again, as much as I hate to criticize, we are in what counts as a third world country. To a certain extent, that shouldn't be as much of a condemnation as it is, because after all, from a Cold War perspective, you had your first world, which is to say the capitalist societies of the West. You had your communist societies of Russia and its satellites. And then you had everybody else, which was all considered the third world. It just so happened that those unaffiliated countries tended to be poor and behind the times. Even the communist countries had to rush to keep up with the West. But the third world decided not to, or just simply couldn't, didn't have the resources or anything like that. Or, if you want to be uncharitable, were being exploited by the first two. Although, in fairness, in some cases they were exploiting the first two worlds right back, claiming that they would ally with the other if they didn't get paid off by the one. But that sort of crookedness only lasts so long and only keeps you going for so long. So here we are in a country that has yet to get beyond developing as opposed to developed. It certainly has its charm, but it also carries this whiff of you don't really want to be here on your own unsupervised, that's for sure. Which brings me right back to my initial assessment when I first got off the bus, that I am glad that I'm with a tour group rather than on my own. I don't think I'd feel safe, let alone comfortable here. I'd like to believe I was overthinking things, but I do fear that being perceived as a prosperous tourist, I might just be seen as a mark in a place like this. Don't get me wrong, it has its picturesque places and its moments. Look at it, it's beautiful. It really is. But in comparison comparison to some of the places that we have been, it's a lot easier to see some of the ugliness behind it as well. It seems a shame to have to admit it or acknowledge it, but it leaves one longing for the days when we get to Singapore, I think. To be fair, Ampenan has somewhat been left to its fate. It's been destroyed essentially as far as a harbor from the war. The capital was moved inland for that very reason. The harbor that we went to is much larger, but nearly an hour's drive away. This one, having fallen into disuse, has also fallen into disrepair. And already I feel like I've gotten lost. Now back in the square that the bus is parked in, things are a little bit more pleasant. I can smell the smoke of beef skewers being cooked, and I'm honestly starting to get a little hungry. The only problem is, it occurs to me, that I'm sure that anything I'd want to buy around here would require actual cash, and I don't have any rupiah. So I think I'm stuck for the moment. They'll probably take credit cards in the mall, but here, there's not a whole lot you can do. Oh, so I really can't contribute to the economy here. Oh well. Well, we've made it to the Islamic Center, largest mosque in the entire province. And this is probably as far as I go. I am, after all, infidel. And this is the equivalent of the court of the Gentiles. So as long as I am the equivalent of a Gentile, this is where I stay. I can't go any further, nor, quite honestly, do I wish to. So, which reminds me, you'll notice that I don't have my backpack on. There's a reason for that. There really isn't that much in my backpack at the moment. Only a map, which I'm not going anywhere from here, and your ashes, and they are not going anywhere here either. I don't think either you or anybody here who knew what I would do would appreciate me doing anything with those here. And so, it may have to wait until the docks again, but we'll see how that goes. For now, this is where I am, and you can see some of the architecture, but only so far as I'm allowed, and that's not very far, to be quite honest. I'm not entirely sure why the tours would take you to a place where the tourists aren't allowed in the first place, but they are justifiably proud of these places, so I guess I sort of understand. And of course the camera can see in much farther than I can go in, so there is that as well. But this is about the extent of it, and I think I shall have to stop here. To be sure, wandering around a mall in Indonesia is not different from wandering around one back home in Chicago or Israel or anywhere else I've been. It's a little bit more compact than the malls at home. Well, more to the point, it's a little more vertical with 4 stories rather than the sprawling areas like Woodfield or Randers Village or something like that. There's only so much room to work with after all. But I do feel silly gawping around when it's like, haven't you ever seen one of these places before? Like, yes, I've seen a mall before, but some of the stores are different. This isn't those well-known names you have back at home, and I'm just trying to take that in and figure out how they connect to their counterparts back where I come from. If I'm looking for this or that, where am I going to find it? And yes, I am looking to do some actual shopping and buying. Why would I go to a mall as part of a tour if I'm not actually gonna spend some money and do this? The question is, where do I find what I'm looking for? And beyond that, how do I get it back on the bus and go home with it? Now that I think about it, I mean, among other things, I'm looking for a suitcase, because I'm gonna need to put this stuff away somehow. But, well, how am I gonna put that on the bus? Or am I just gonna put it underneath on the way home? It should be amusing, and that's assuming I'm successful. I'm not betting on it necessarily. But we can but try and hope. I will say, from here, the sweep of the place gets a little bit more vast. Kind of impressive in its own right. To be sure, buying a suitcase first is probably the more impractical things to buy. But it is also the most necessary. Clothing I can get anywhere and anywhen, but I need to get one of these things in order to put it someplace. Whether I find anything is another matter entirely, but I do need this, as I've already got some clothing to put away somewhere. I just don't have the somewhere. Now I do. And it looks like there's plenty of some things to buy in order to fill that somewhere soon enough. Let's get down there and check it out. Mildly embarrassing that I could have gotten something here, but it looks like the prices are fairly comparable to what I spent. Oh boy, my voice is really shot still. Well, let's keep wandering around and see what there is in the way of bargains. I have to admit, I found a few interesting shirts, but an American has no business buying pants here. I finally found something with a 38-inch waist, and it went down to the floor and covered my shoes. They don't expect somebody with that much waist to be as short as I am, even though I don't count myself as terribly short as such. It's just, I'm still overweight, or as Garfield would say, under tall. Well, now I don't feel like I'm gonna look quite so out of place on formal night. And these shirts were really quite inexpensive. Yes, they're not exactly tuxedo quality, but, you know, it's something. And I've got a place to put them all when I bring them home. I even found a shirt, Daniel, that you'd appreciate, and I think you'll agree once I unpack it. For now, I think I'm gonna try and grab myself something to snack on, because I've been as successful as I could have hoped to be. Apart from that attempt at buying jeans. You know, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but at the same time, I guess I really should be taller if I'm gonna be this heavy. So, maybe that's just more encouragement to try and lose some more weight. But I'm never gonna get to some of the 27, 28 inches that they're expecting people to have. I don't know if it's an Indonesian thing, but I've been seeing a lot of street level signs like this. I might as well stand in front of it when I'm talking about being here at the mall. It's been, like I said, a fairly successful day. I probably should try and see if I can replenish my stock of sunscreen, if I can find a pharmacy or something like that. But other than that, things have gone pretty well. The only thing I don't think I'm going to have a lot of time for is actually getting something to eat, because the bus is taking off in less than half an hour. So, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I mean, I can survive. I'm just going to be missing some footage, that's all. No big deal. And, well, we'll see what happens. I've still got another floor to go on my way out, so we're not done yet. No giving up hope. Well, considering that this was meant to be a shopping excursion, quite literally, it was quite a success. But considering that it's barely 10 minutes to 6, and we need to head out at 6 o'clock, or at least be on the bus by then, I think I'm kind of stuck. I'm gonna have to head out, which, I mean, it's fine, but it's a shame I didn't get to try something new and tell you what it was like. Maybe I'll have better luck in Bali. And I still have to get myself some sunscreen. But all things considered, this worked out as good as, and maybe a little better than I hoped. So, yeah. Anyway, need to find the bus now. This ought to be good for fun. Yep, there are the buses, and there's some people already heading towards them, showing that it's not like I'm late or anything. I'm only a little bit behind them, so this is good. As much as I want to be able to put you down everywhere I go, some places there just isn't a good place for it. Scatter your ashes outside of a mall? That seems inappropriate. Even more so the idea of placing you outside of a mosque. So here I am, out in a remote section of where the ship is moored. But it is still Lombok. It is still outside the terminal. It is over the ocean. It is where you would want to be, I think. It's more like I usually do, where I just kind of sneak in and walk in like I own the place and like I know what I'm doing. Because this is very remote from everywhere else. This little concrete island is a good 100 meters from the rest of the terminal. And it allows me to be here quietly with you for a moment before I do this. I'm gonna try and explain myself and what the day was like. And, well, you've seen all of that, so I guess I don't really have that much to explain as such. But at least I have a moment to be here with you and say, you know, it's a nice place. I certainly wouldn't want to stay here. I'm not sure I'd want to come back necessarily even. Maybe if Megumi wants to, whoever she might be. But for now, I'm satisfied. I've been here. There are so many other places I'd rather see again, and there's so many that I've yet to see in the next couple of months. So, here we go. There you go. Welcome to Lombok. I hope you feel at home. Take care, honey. Keep an eye on me,
Sir.
and wish me luck.
Sir.
I'm gonna need it.